Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to BG5 Live listeners. This is episode 17. This is going to be the last episode of the 2024 year. We're going to take a little break and moving into 2025. Very exciting. So, Vanessa, this is episode 17. Crazy. It's wild.
Yeah,
We're going to be focusing
17.
on sales and marketing and transits and whatever else. We have our very favorite guest back, Tuck, on the show. Woohoo! So we're really excited to have Tuck. She's always a hoot for me. Vanessa, give us the introduction for those who are new to BG5 Live.
Welcome to BG5 Live, the show for BG5 and human design professional students and enthusiasts who want a deeper understanding of how to apply human design to business so that they can thrive in their own careers and help their clients in doing the same.
Thanks, Vanessa. That was great. So Vanessa and I come into this little conclusion that even though that we're express builders, we have that 34-20 strength in our design. I think some people have a little bit of misconception that we can just go and go and go. Tuck is also an express builder, but she is on the emotional side of things. So Tuck, Vanessa, as express builders, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling this kind of end of the year coming down. It's been a good year, full year. Now I'm feeling this energy to relax. How about you two? You feeling the same or bundle of energy?
Oh yeah, I've been noticing that, that unhealthy expression of the 34 of trying to force and push because I feel like I shouldn't relax. And then I recognize it and I relax. Awareness is key.
So, Tuck, I know you have the 1222, which is an emotional, manifested, initiated strength. How does your express builder energy play out? I'm going to grab your chart here. I'm guessing your moods really dictate so much about your energy expenditure.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I was thinking that I shared that when I was on the BG5 Live and we were talking about the 1222. I have been told since I was a baby that I am moody. Like my mother had a little sticker on the refrigerator that was this caricature of a tantrum thrower. And so it started really young, and she said when they would ignore me and walk out of the room, I'd get up off the floor, find him in the next room, and get back down on the floor and start again. But I have always had this, just this feeling of feeling really euphoric, and then sometimes just being really in my own melancholy. And it was a blessing to get that my moods are part of my charm and guide me in everything that I do. AKA, that's how come I said, I almost called you last week. But I'm very careful not to put that volatile, sometimes moody, quite high and low wave on other people. But I actually love it, Mike. So thanks for asking.
Of course.
I want to share about that with my 3740 because I also am well known by anybody that knew me as a child as a massive tantrum thrower, like massive, explosive, like destructive tantrums, and like understanding how that 3740 works and how it shows up. I was like, okay, that all makes sense. And I also now make sure that when I have my little wave crashes, little is a euphemism for massive, I like to have them on my own. I let myself have them, but I try not to destroy anybody else in the process. So there's no collateral damage.
I love listening to both of your stories. Really good. When I was young, so I don't have any emotional definition of my design, but my buddies in high school, so we did. I hung out with some like really rough and tumble guys, and we played football and wrestling, very physical activities. But my friends used to call me the toggle switch. So a toggle switch, if you don't know it, it flips on and off. And so that's for me very much the 34-20. So I could be peaceful as all get out and then suddenly roaring tiger. So we each Sounds like we each had our own tantrums in a unique way. That's kind of funny to me.
Well, it's interesting, Mike, because looking at your chart, if you go back to it for a second, is that you have so many different ways that your emotional intelligence function, solar plexus, can be activated through either transits or through relationships with other people. So I
That
think
is such a
there's a
good
lot
point.
to that as well. So for
Yes.
anybody that's listening, Mike has 1, 2, 3, 4 traits or gates pointing at his emotional intelligence function, also known as the solar plexus, and then he has one significant one, his conscious grounding balance, hanging off of the solar plexus. So it is actually really easy for that to become activated for him.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I really appreciate that. So anytime I'm in groups, it's a high likelihood that my emotions are getting defined, which easily means amplified. So yeah, I have much better control. I don't throw any tantrums that much anymore, says me. All right. So we're going to go into the transits. We're looking at the transits for today. Interesting configuration. So in the core essence, we have the 26 line quality 3. So that's interesting. We'll be exploring that. And Vanessa's going to take us and talk. We're going to take us through the 3 transits moving up and through the new year. We'll be starting with the 26. But if you're looking at our little chart here, the 35-36 is defined. So that's the strength of the experiencer, also known as the jack of all trades. So this is very much an abstract process, very experiential. So if you're wanting to try new things, experiment, jump into things, we advise you to take your time. Especially today. Today's a 3rd line quality day. A lot of trial and error, a lot of mistakes happening. If you're bumping into things, that's probably one of the reasons. One of the other definitions showing up is the 25-51, which is from the willpower to the identity. That's competitiveness. It's also initiation. So it's this idea of pushing the boundaries, going into new territory. So based on these 2 transits, if you're feeling like jumping into something brand new or spending a lot of money, put the pause button on. Don't do it. Just wait. Vanessa, why don't you take us through the transits, starting with the trait 26 sales?
Yeah, so speaking of trade 26 and not jumping into spending a lot of money, because this is sales, and since it's in transit, everybody's experiencing it. There can be, you got to really watch out for the quote unquote used car salesman here trying to sell you something that sounds too good to be true, because if it sounds too good to be true, it very well could be. Remember to always follow your strategy and authority. And definitely, if you are emotional or you have to wait for clarity on those big purchases. So trade 26, this is where the potential and the power to exaggerate, manipulate, persuade, and transmit information into something marketable. So usually people that have this defined are pretty good at marketing. It's something they're natural at. And even if they're not good at it yet, they can easily learn it. This does sit on the willpower function, also known as the ego or heart center. So there is a strong ego here. There's a possibility to withstand rejection. I personally don't have this defined. I would imagine that people do. Maybe they're good at sales because they are really good at taking no's. Again, because this center or this function is defined for everybody right now through the 25-51, this might be even, a bigger thing for those of you that normally have an undefined willpower function. Luckily, the 51 right now is the moon, so that's only going to be a few more hours. So this is not a long-term transit like it was earlier in the year. Again, this is that natural salesperson, often hired to market and sell a product or service when they have it defined. You might feel more salesy right now, even if you don't have it defined. And there is such an importance in maintaining a healthy balance between work and rest. And I know we talked about this already. Anybody that has a defined willpower function, that balance between work and rest is so important because you will have the willpower to power through things even when it's really time to take a break. So really finding that balance is absolutely essential. And that is something I've really been noticing lately. I want to willpower through stuff and the energy is just not there. So I'm allowing myself to not power through stuff because it really isn't aligned. So yeah, the other thing here, you want to be really careful about not making any promises that you can't keep right now, because that can also be showing up in the transit. So in order to, maintain influence with others, it is important to only make promises that you can keep. And I would love to hear everybody else's feedback on this and your experience.
I have one main experience, but I'd love to hear, Tuck, your thoughts on the 26.
Yeah, I'll beat everybody. That was good. I have an open willpower function. My daughter and my best friend both have defined willpower functions with trait 26 defined. And they are two of the most persuasive, delightfully manipulative people that I know in terms of, so I'm speaking from someone who is conditioned by the trait and the defined willpower function. We used to say about my daughter when she was a teeny little girl, I think I shared this earlier, that she was going to be able to sell anything when she grew up. We needed to put a little chastity belt on her. But my best friend, like, when she is selling something to me, I can tell that it's coming from the purity and the innocence of her heart versus ego, like having the trait open, undefined. I can really tell the difference between someone who is literally selling me from the ego versus someone who is selling me and it's coming from the purity of their heart. So that's been an interesting experience on my end. But their love, their capacity to do that, to sell naturally, it's gobsmacking to me. Like, I can't sell things. I have to only do it because my heart loves it or I'm compelled to do it. But if you ask me to go sell something, it's like I start tripping over my words and I can't get it out. But watching people with this trait defined, they're spectacular to me. Yeah, that's what I have to say about trait 26.
It's a good,
Can
those are
we
good
create
stories.
a new BG5 course for sales that's called Delightfully Manipulative? That was just the best talk, and I feel like that needs to be turned into some kind of a program. Delightfully Manipulative.
I don't know about you, Mike, in your classes. I mean, I know y'all been in some together, but this was a trait that people get highly resistant to hear about because of the word trickster and manipulative. And so maybe that's where I came up with that too, because I am quite Pollyanna, as we'll find out with trait 11. I am Pollyanna of possibilities. Okay, I'm complete.
My mom had the whole 2644, so I grew up with this energy pretty much my whole life. I have I don't I'm hesitant to use this because it can give the 26 a bad name, but there's this idea of memory transforming. I'm trying to be very diplomatic about this. So I have some friends and I've watched this experience where I could have sworn that events played out in a certain way. It's indelible in my mind. And a few people who have the 26, as if it never happened or it happened in a completely different way. And it's a little disconcerting for me to, like, I remember thinking a couple times, wait, I was actually there. I heard everything that was said. I know how that played out. And in the person's memory, that just wasn't the way it went down. And so I've always been interested in that and just kind of exploring like how memory can change for people. I know memory changes for everyone, especially based on their design. So that's my one experience of the 26. And I loved hearing Vanessa's explanation here and yours too, Tuck. So Yeah. All right, moving on to the 11 ideas.
Chuck, you want to take this one?
Oh, sure. I actually have trait 11 on an open conceptualization function, and it is my unconscious core essence. So I was going to use the word delightfully again. I love my trait 11 as the trait of ideas. Before I go to the slide, I call myself a possibility thinker. I love to ponder. I love to contemplate. I've talked to you about my epiphanies before. But just to have this light bulb, these light bulb moments where ideas and possibilities come in, it's been a great experience. And so in terms of trait 11, ideas which stimulate others, when waiting for the invitation to share, again, it's part of that projected strength, and the ideas they're required to be invited out of me, us, those of us who have trait 11. The peaceful and quiet moments of assessment. That reminds me of what you were saying a minute ago, Mike, about the 26 and the way you experience people. Trait 11 is part of that abstract circuitry where, we're taking in all these experiences, we're navigating our emotions in the process, taking reflection time to see what we've gained, what we want to glean as wisdom. Because if I don't, what I have discovered with my trait 11, people will literally jump off the cliff with me because I can be quite stimulating with my ideas. And when I read about trait 11 a couple of years ago, I said, Tuck, you might want to just pull back because you can get really excited when you share your ideas. And 3 days later, you filled in the blank with a different part of the story and you don't feel that way anymore. And you've left these people out in the, solitude by themselves. So anyway, seek the ideas of others to stimulate your own reflections. I love engaging with other people in terms of hearing their ideas and being able to share mine. Attempting to bring your own ideas into manifestation rather than simply reflecting on them will lead to frustration, crisis, and confusion. I've heard that from myself as well as other people with trait 11, that we can be overwhelmed with the possibility of ideas, and frustration comes in when I hold the expectation that I need to bring them to fruition and that my ideas don't have to be for me to bring to fruition. I just literally get to share them with other people. Therein lies the stimulation. Again, it's not about action or decision making. It's about being the outer authority for others. And so to be open to sharing those ideas when invited, ideas that are meant to be shared with other people. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I wanted to share. I love the stimulating and the seeker aspect of trait 11 and the openness to possibilities instead of having to be logical and decide something. So that's what I have to say for now about trait 11.
So trait 56 is my conscious core essence. And so I am always looking for the 11. And I know exactly who the trait 11 people are in my life in case I need to connect with them about something. And it's so interesting because this is one of I have two traits that I have trait envy about. And this was one of them. Although at the same time, I'm like, oh, it's lucky. It's probably good that I don't have two strings that connect my conceptualization to my communication and action, because there's enough stuff happening there all the time. I probably don't need any extra consistent help. So yeah.
I love that yours is your conscious core essence and mine is my unconscious core essence.
I know, I was thinking that too. And I know Mike also has the 56. I think it's his driving force.
Yeah.
Look at
So I
there.
was thinking about this connection with and Vanessa, both you and I experiences. So the 3420 in BG5, we call it the strength of charisma. But in human design, there's also a tagline where thoughts become deeds, a design where thoughts must become deeds. So there's something about the 34 that seems to generate a lot of energy. And if you have the 56, again, this is my experience, and Vanessa, you probably experienced it too, similar. I generate ideas like no one's business. It's just all the time, just kind of popping. And one of the things that I discovered, I wish I discovered this earlier because it would have saved me a bunch of time and grief, which is just because you have an idea doesn't mean you actually need to do anything with it. No matter how amazing the idea seems, and believe me, I've gone down that road. So you have these ideas like, oh, I actually have to do something with it. So as Tuck was probably mentioning, this idea that the ideas are in our head, so there's no energy there. And so unless you're actually using some part of your inner authority to say, okay, this idea needs to come into being, just leave it be. Literally just leave it be, or share it with someone and maybe they take it and run with it. But oh man, I wish I had learned that earlier. So ideas are very stimulating, and for certain designs, just let them be like that. Just kind of honor them. Anything else to say on the 11?
Well, I have something to say about ideas. Because I mean, you've
I knew
even
you
said
would.
to
I
me,
knew
like,
you
keep
would.
sending your ideas. And for me, I think it's actually my completely open head that is just picking up inspiration left and right. And like, that's where all the ideas come from. And definitely learning to like, not like sharing them when necessary, but not necessarily doing anything unless I get something to respond to, has also been really helpful in not doing so much and just wasting a bunch of energy.
Yeah, yeah. I can do the 10 if you're up for it. So
Sounds good.
trait 10 is an interesting trait. It's called behavior of self.
And that would not be Tuck South.
Forgot, I didn't make that connection. Tuck self, behavior of self. And do you even have the 10? No, you don't have the 10. You do not, nor do I. So the 10 is an interesting trait in that I think of it as one of those nexus traits where it can connect. So it's coming out of the identity function, can connect to the 20. So the strength, from the identity to the communication function. So that's the higher principles. Can connect to the 57, this inner knowing, insights, spontaneity, this ability to express yourself. No, sorry. That's the 5720. 5710 is perfected form. I got a little confused there. So that's perfected self. And then to the 34, which is, exploration. So this is one of the 4 love traits. And in this case, it's the love of self. It's also the ability to adapt behavior in any given situation, which I think is really amazing. The key is loving, trusting, and accepting yourself. This is where self-care originates. The empowerment, this is one of the, it's part of the individuality empowerment circuit thematic. And so it's about living authentically as yourself. So your behavior is an expression of your identity. Your behavior is an expression of who you are. And the idea, the more authentically you're living from that place, the more that you empower others. So in a lot of ways, this empowerment is you being a role model by just being yourself, which is pretty amazing. So empowering, this is also about empowering others to love and accept themselves by first loving and accepting yourself. And again, it's all about expressing your uniqueness. Vanessa, Tuck, would you have anything to add up to that?
Would you say that this, when it connects to the 20, it is the leadership trait of integration? And I have worked with somebody who was actually a self-advisor who had this trait, and it was and a 6'2" public role at that. And it was just really amazing to watch her empower others by being herself, by loving herself, her ability to see things that those of us that are not advisors and don't have a 6 quality in our public role, like, might not be able to see. It was really, really incredibly empowering.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, my
Tuck,
daughter, Jamie has the 10 on a defined identity and direction function. And self-care, I would say, or not loving oneself is definitely a theme in her life. And I mean, we talk about it because she's had human design session when she was, in her teens. The oscillation, the duality, the behavior that fluctuates between loving her uniqueness, being present and natural to her expression versus being a victim. Like, I've told her I'm going to hand her a glass of water and I'm going to have to fill it up because sometimes she'll see it as half empty instead of half full. But that's been my experience of her, as well as my older sister who had trait 10 on an undefined identity and direction. It was, the beautiful capacity that they had to express their uniqueness and the lifelong theme of self-care, but versus that victim self-blame, others blame that would show up as well. That was kind of interesting. It's what I have to say about trait 10, behavior of the self.
Yeah, that's a nice one to end on, the 10. So we talked about sales and marketing, and I know that our show that was one of the themes, but I also think given this time of year, as 2 more weeks to the holidays, so everyone, I hope your season is ending well. But I wanted to take a moment to reflect on just maybe how our year was. So we have Vanessa here, we have Tuck here, and we also have the school assistant director, Sarah, here. So I'd love to just check in with each of you. How has your year been as we begin to close? And this feels like a perfect time to be able to do that as things are winding down. Hopefully, sort of we get to rest a little bit. And so it's also a time of reflection. Vanessa, how's your year been for you?
I did not know that you were going to ask this. So it's interesting actually, because I officially started the BG5 consultant certification in January. And now I'm wrapping up my final project. And we started BG5 Live this year. I TA'd for you in quite a few different capacities this year. So it's been a very big, like BG5 intensive year. And it's really cool to kind of look back to where I was with this knowledge to like where I am now and where I'm going. I also think, I have the 3740 community, and I feel like I've been very much invited into this community. Mike, you were doing a lot of the inviting into this community, which has been really cool. And so just experiencing my own design and how it has been showing up for me over this past year. Yeah, has been really fascinating. So it's been a good year. It's definitely had its ups and downs, that is for sure. But yeah, it's finishing on a good quiet note. And yeah.
Thank you. That was really nice, Vanessa. Thanks for, I know that this was totally unplanned and you did a great job with it. So thanks. How about you, Tuck? How was your year looking back? Any reflections?
I always want to sing a song that's appropriate for the moment, but I won't. There's a song that talks about this being a very good year. It's a Christmas song, I actually think. What is 2024? The word that comes up for me is authentic flow. As I progress chronologically, I find that there is less of a desire to work hard, to be distracted, head down, blinders on, which has been my modus operandi over the years. It has been a pleasure to allow things to come to me and to live and to feel like I have been very much in a flow, and a huge, I'm going to say the huge piece of it is the BG5 Institute. And doing what I love and loving what I do. The thing in my life right now that brings me enormous joy is being able to teach the foundation as well as the certification classes, more so to meet people from around the world. Let's say around the globe, going back to trait 11th, inspiration is in that trait for me as well. To be inspired by the people who are drawn to this work for themselves, and again, to take the work out into their lives personally and professionally. You know, I don't know how it gets any better than that. Like, what a way to make a living. What a way to make a living. And I'll close with that. How's that?
That's a good closing. Yeah, thank you, Tuck. That's great. Your love and enthusiasm for the Institute is really contagious. And I'm guessing your students just love it. And, you know, as a fellow teacher with you, I just so appreciate it. So thank you.
That clip we were talking about.
And as a student, I can also say I also very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
Vanessa. Oh, your name, Vanessa.
Another thing I love about Tuck, Vanessa, I think we heard one or two, but I didn't call it out. Tuckisms, those phrases. I think she had at least 2 or 3 in this episode.
Like delightfully manipulative.
Yes.
Like arrogantly humble. What arrogantly humble of you, or humbly arrogant. Yeah, same thing.
Tuckisms. We're gonna have to have like maybe even a blog about Tuckisms. Every show we'll jot them down. We'll somehow infuse it into the BG5 language. The Tuckisms. So we also have Sarah McGowan here. Sarah she sneaks into our shows, but she has a huge presence in the Institute, mostly for a lot of people, it's kind of behind the scenes, but for anyone who works in the Institute, Sarah is a huge and wonderful presence. So Sarah has been one of the main driving forces of the school since I've been here. So I'd love to invite you in, Sarah, and how has your year been? Because I know it's been an incredibly busy year for you. And I don't have your design, but for anyone who doesn't know, Sarah has a really powerful Express Builder design. She has the 214, Vanessa, you can remind me, the 18, and the 4323. So it's this power
and
column.
the 61
24.
Yeah. So the only one of those that she is missing is the 360.
Yeah. So Sarah,
Wild.
How's your year been?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I'm gonna stay off camera today because I just
That's okay.
don't feel like being on camera, but you know, it's been an interesting year, and it's been really transformational. I had a baby, and my baby turns 1 on the 18th. So it's almost been a complete year, and I'm reflecting a lot on that because, you know, that's a big deal. He's going from being a baby to a toddler, and where I was a year ago compared to where I am now. And it's like, I just almost can't even believe it, you know, like watching a movie of my life of what's happened in the last year. And I feel like I've just gone through this transformation process, but I also know that it's still just getting started. So I'm also thinking about 2025 and looking forward to that. But at the beginning of the year, something that people just kept saying to me, this word kept coming up, was grace. Grace kept popping up all the time. And that's a word that I feel like I don't usually hear, I never would use, but that is definitely the word to kind of define 2024 for me, is grace. I had to give myself a lot of grace, others grace, and it really let go of some things and be okay with letting go. And it wasn't easy, but on the other side of it, I have this growth. And I think it's going to help me in my personal life, but also professionally. The Institute has gone through a lot of changes, and I think we're going to see a lot of growth as well. So it's just been a year of grace and transformation, and I guess rediscovering myself and who I am with 2 kids and having a career that I love, and finding that balance and gosh, I just have to say, I'm so thankful for the Institute and for this knowledge and for our amazing team because, you know, I don't know what I would do without these connections, to be honest. It's so easy to consume yourself in motherhood. And I'm just thankful that I have a career that I just absolutely love. I mean, there's just nothing like it. We're living the dream. So that's all.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Yeah, it's been a really big year for you. It's hard to believe it's been, you know, you became a mom, you really started taking over the helm of the school. You're so present. I just like I can't believe it. And so I'm really appreciative of having you there, knowing I had this experience. So this happened. So when I'm signing into the BG5 Live, you know, Zoom site, I always have this code that comes up and it doesn't go to my email, it goes to Sarah's. So I text her and like 10 seconds later, she's right there giving me the code. So that's a little symbol for Sarah's ability to you know, really help people, not only the teachers, but the students. So my theme, I feel like as we're beginning to wind down our last show of the year, has been one of change. So for me, when I reflect back on this year, the only thing that I see in my rearview mirror is teaching. It's just that's the thing that consumes me, drove me. That's all pretty much I thought about. And so as a teacher, I have gone through this process of metamorphosis, I feel like over and over and over. And I'm always amazed at how much teaching brings up as part of, you know, this inner growth process. And the other thing I've been thinking about, along with my own metamorphosis, my own change, is how much the world is changing. Like I was reflecting with Vanessa and Tuck, you know, when we were talking about the show. In the last week, so much change has been happening. A lot of that is happening on the global level. And one of the things that I think about is I want to bring it back to BG5 as we begin to wrap up our show for the year, is that a lot of when you begin to look at world events, what we're beginning to see is a lot of the structures are beginning to break down, you know, on a governmental level, country level, just, you know, corporations are going through a lot of changes. And so the theme that I want to bring us back to as we begin to close is we're moving more towards individuality. And so what that means is for us as BG5 professionals is we're all about empowering the individual. So as these bigger structures begin to change and shift and go through their own metamorphosis, some will be okay, but we're going to see a lot of other structures that aren't going to. They're going to start to crumble. They're going to start to come down. So that's where human design, that's where BG5 comes in, is that we empower individuals to be their own self. And we do it in the context of business, but that's those themes that we were talking about earlier, which is all about authenticity, being yourself, being empowered. That is where it's going to be at in the next, you know, coming decades, because that's the theme of 2027. That's what we're moving into. So on that note, we begin to sign out. Vanessa, Tuck, Sarah, any last things before we sign off?
We're all at a loss for words, so unlike us express builders.
Yeah. So
I think that's it for me.
Yeah. Tuck, anything?
I appreciate what you spent moments sharing, and that, you know, since what, 2003-4, first introduction to human design, I've been hearing the foretelling of this very time that we're in. And I really appreciate your saying that, because the reminder that we're all really going to be okay. Like, as long as I'm aligned and authentic, I'm going to be able to maneuver and move forward. I think we have the greatest, I don't want to say the greatest, see this, you can jump on off the cliff with me. We have one of the greatest system on the planet right now for putting us at ease and keeping us out of fear, as long as we're doing exactly what you said, Mike, staying aligned with our design and moving towards individuality. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. I appreciate being a part of this movement. I think it's really important. One of the things a teacher said in one of my classes, I was in my early days of learning human design and then later BG5, he talked about the power of having your own inner authority. And he said something that really stuck with me. He says, when you think about having an inner authority, it essentially means no one has the power over you or your life because it's your authority that comes from within. And this idea of you make decisions for yourself that are correct, no one else theoretically has the ability to say something different. I know that can be a gray area in some ways, but by and large, this idea that we are empowered to move through life in a way that's correct for us is really powerful. And it's a little bit heretical too on the same level. So our listeners, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back in 2025. We'll be back in, I think, Vanessa, I can't remember when I think it's the 14th. So we'll be back Tuesday, the 14th of January, same time, same channel. Everyone have a good holiday season, and we'll look forward to seeing you in 2025. Thank you. Bye for now.
Everyone.
Thank you.